Hello, everybody. Here's another program on my ASD journey, and I've got a couple guests. This will be fun because this will be a little bit for everybody in this. This is Julie and Dan Brant, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves because this could be too complex for me to try to do. Go ahead.
Yeah, bud.
You go first.
All right. My name is Daniel Brant. In my early 40s, Julie and I met and married when we were teaching together. And it's been a pretty interesting journey ever since.
Cool.
No, and I'm Julie, and I don't know what to say.
And
Hi.
Hey. I'm sorry. I was looking down at my mixing board here. How long ago did you meet?
We met in 2004.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
We both taught at the same elementary school. We were team teachers.
Okay.
We taught together, and we made a really good team. I did all the stuff he didn't like to do, and he did all the stuff I didn't like to do. And our kids were very successful because of it.
Cool.
I was the good cop. My classes were always just kind of silly and fun and joking, and Julie was very much had a regime of this is when everything is due and you have to have this, and she was very driven with specifics.
Yeah.
Each kid will do this and you will do that, and mine was kind of, hey, do you want to do this? And does everybody want to do this today? Let's go outside and find bugs, and we'll just look outside. And we had very, very different teaching techniques.
Mm-hmm.
We had both of us high scores. Our kids tested off the charts, but it's so night and day different. We were just exact opposites.
But you make me sound strict, too strict. I wasn't. I gave kids a lot of choices. My goal was to have them have their highest expectation of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That was my goal, and I held them to the expectations that they set for themselves. And so I was more driven by the educational part of it and getting kids to set their own goals and stuff like that. And he was the fun guy. He was so much fun. Sometimes I would get jealous though, because the kids loved me and they loved him. They loved us both, and they understood our dynamic, and we kind of came as a team. But there was times I was jealous because he was the fun one. I'm very good at organizing. I'll give an example as Habitat Day. We'd have Habitat Day, and parents would come in, and it was very overwhelming for me.
So the Habitat Day that she brings up is funny. I'm very much science driven. I love science and math, and outdoors to me is the ideal classroom. So I worked with our school, and we set aside 52,000 square feet of playground space. We put in ponds and added frogs and turtles and things, so we could go out and participate in reality. I had kids outside begging me, "Hey, can I rake leaves today?" Let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that for me, that led to this thing called Habitat Day, where Julie would set up the structure of it, like helping me organize parent volunteers and who was going to bring what food. And then, I got to just go out and be the fun guy. We planted flowers and weeded gardens, and
I would hide.
So because it was a highly social event, once all the background paperwork and emails and things were done, Julie would disappear. She would stay inside, and I would have 60 students or 50 students, and their parents would all be out there, and Julie would be in a classroom with the two kids who just would rather read.
Uh-huh.
And she would kind of bunker down, and that social stuff just never worked, but it was my forte.
Yeah.
I'd turn the lights off and shut the doors so people wouldn't come in and bother us, and we would just chill out.
You haven't actually stated this yet, but Julie, you just recently were diagnosed, right?
Yes. I was diagnosed
In just over a year.
Okay.
Huh? Yeah. Wow. And I'm just over 2, and you probably remember that. That's a topic we could go off onto. But the interesting thing that I want to bring into it eventually here, and you had said you'd be willing to come back and we can talk about these things in more depth. But that you have a family of 4 girls, is that right?
Yep.
2 Aspies and 2 what do you prefer, neurotypicals? I'm never comfortable with.
I say autistic and not autistic.
Yeah.
There we go. There's 3 of us that are autistic here.
Yep. Three versus 3. This is like wrestling, you know. this
And
is,
I don't know if I'd call you guys neurotypicals, because you guys are kind of nicer than most people that I've met.
what, the thing about the term neurotypical is I've seen it in professional literature saying the typical neurology, you know, and which I'm more comfortable with that. But when you say neurotypical, it sort of sounds like you're saying those people, you know,
Right.
And
there are some of those people, and that's why I don't want to kind of like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Like here in our house, you know, Julie struggles with me at times because I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was in college.
Okay.
And I know there's a family history of depression that's, you know, plagued my family. And I don't even really consider myself neurotypical because, you know, really with all of us having different issues, whether it's autism or depression, anxiety, or ADHD or whatever, they're really neurotypical is such a broad pen stroke that it doesn't really fit anybody.
That's interesting.
So,
yeah.
You know, with us, some of my weaknesses have been Julie's strengths, and I think it makes us an ideal match. I can't stay focused on anything, but Julie can do something for 5 or 6 hours till it's done. So, you know, it's like she's...
And it only feels like 2 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
The joys of hyper focus. I have to really be interested to do that, though. If I'm not interested, I just can't do it.
Yeah. I'm finding as far as I don't know if it's age. Once I find something to focus on, but like I've had things I needed to do around home here, and I know my sleep schedule with this whole COVID-19 stuff going on, and I also, like about almost a year ago, I went part-time working, and that it throws your schedule off just working part-time. But now I can stay up till 3, you know, and will, you know, and it just makes my whole, it just really puts a zonk on my brain, you know. I need more structure than that. But I find that I try to sit down and do something, and I'm tired. I have a very hard time. Seems like the energy, but if I get in that stream, I'm like you are, Julie. You know, it's like hours go by.
And that's what I try to explain to Dan a lot, because once I get that motivation to do something, if I don't get started on it and do it right then, I can lose that. And sometimes he'll be frustrated because if we have like a project that we need to do, and I'm like, okay, let's get it together. I'll let you tell him what happens.
That she starts it. No, but Thomas, an example, like we worked on a house, we painted together, and Julie would say, okay, we got to go. Do you got this? You have this? You have this? Let's go. And it would take 3 or 4 minutes to get a can open or to stir paint. And by the time the paint was ready to be brushed on, she was done. It didn't happen fast enough. So the driven Julie would be in neutral.
Yeah.
And it took so much longer to get her remotivated that you kind of have to aggressively be prepared. Like we do a family trip. We'll go to visit my family up north, and you know, I'll get in the car, the kids will get in the car, Julie won't be ready, so we'll all come back in, and somehow she'll get past us, get in the car, and say, I waited for you guys for 20 minutes, now I'm just not going. But really, she was only out of the house for seconds, and we were ready before her, but we like had to do something to fill time, and then it's like this weird little overlap of we weren't all ready right when she was, so it's over.
Yeah, it's like I have to build myself up.
Yeah.
And then once I have the energy, it's like I do it in a spurt. I do it really fast, I do it really hard, and I get it done really quickly, and I cannot stop. If I even stop to take a lunch break or whatnot, I may not be able to complete it.
I can relate.
Know if you struggle with that.
I can relate to that. Not to that degree, but I can relate to that. And it's funny. I don't know if I have the medication Vyvanse that a doctor had given me a year ago or so, and I tried it for a while. I couldn't remember why I stopped, and I started taking it again maybe a month ago. And I don't sleep enough. I end up pushing myself so hard that I do a burnout, which lasts for Yeah, it's does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I did that. I would do a cycles, like I would burn out. I think when you ask what I prefer autistic, because when people hear ASD, I think that they think that we're just neurotypical with like a few traits, but they don't understand that when you're autistic, it's not that simple. What we show the world, what we show them isn't everything. And I find that when I work in those bursts, then I would end up just crashing. So I had no life outside of my job. It was like I go to work, I come home and sleep and melt down, and I had nothing to give.
Yeah.
I had nothing to give my kids or my husband or anybody. I was just but I was really good at my job.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us now because I've already been denied for Social Security and stuff. This last burnout that I had was just like all the other burnouts, except I cannot will myself to go back. I just can't do it anymore. And I don't. Sorry, I didn't know we were going to talk about burnout, but we got there. Yeah. You just feel like I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. I got to find a different way. I think part of it was learning that I was autistic and being able to start to heal myself from the inside, because this year I have spent so much time learning how to not hate myself anymore, because you learn from a young age how you don't fit, you don't belong, you hear so much negative about anything, and you spend all your time and all your focus trying to hide it and try to fit when you know you never fit. And then just being able to find out, oh my gosh, there's a reason for this. And when I was young, I used to have huge fantasies, like in school, where I would think, okay, so I must have like special powers, and they haven't developed yet, but I'm really not a human being, and someday these powers are going to show themselves, and that's what my goal is here on earth. That's why I have to suffer through this. That's why I'm here. That's why, because I'm special. I just don't know what it is yet, but one of these days I'm going to find out. And when I was a kid, I always thought, at one point it was a witch, at one point it was an angel or whatnot, and sure enough, I was different, but it was autistic. And what that's helped me to do is to see that, I am who I am, and the people that hurt me, a lot of them did it because they didn't know any better.
Sure.
Like, I have forgiven my father. I have forgiven, I forgive the people in my life who denied me things I needed because they didn't understand, like my parents, because I know that they had real love for me. I still struggle with trying to deal with the injustice that's out there in the world, with how people are so cruel to each other. That's just, for me, that can just really get me going. It's like it just really gets me going. And that's where this year I've been able to just kind of look at it and learn to like forgive myself a little bit and say, you were just doing the best you could. You were just trying to survive. You were just trying to, and then I have to mourn the childhood that I think I lost because I was never able to experience the things that interested me or that I wanted to do, or things that I never really got to learn who I was. And it's kind of hard to realize that. What am I, 44, 45?
I'm not supposed to tell.
I always forget my age. I think I'm 45 now, right?
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Anyways, at this age, it's hard to feel like, I feel almost like I want to get some of that back. I want I want to feel some of that joy that I missed out on, and being able to forgive yourself a little and just give yourself a little space and say, you know what, you worked really damn hard for a really long time.
Yeah.
It's okay if you just want to take a little break right now.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me feels guilty for doing it because I'm only 44, 45, but part of me thinks people don't understand how hard those first 40 some years were. I worked so hard. I worked myself into not being able to.
Yeah.
I just, like, I find myself very much wanting to do my kids stuff that I would have done when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That I wanted to and didn't get to.
This is what's fascinating about this topic is that the guy and I just 4 hours ago were talking about burnout, and and his son. I don't know if you have. Did you see that the YouTube of that I had put on Facebook about his? It was a TEDx that he did, a TED presentation. I'll have to give that to you. You'll find it fascinating. But
I may have.
Okay, but his son, when he was 1 year old, 1 year of age, started to regress, and at that point, they long story short, they found a place in Israel that had a method or a system for getting him, because what their philosophy was there was that. And I believe this. And when he did his presentation, it just was one of those things that rang true when you heard it. It's like, that's me, that's us, that's autism. And it was, there's what the component that they did in Israel, they really focused on was not only just the sensory and I guess sensory is a big one, the cognitive, but it was the emotional. How sensitive kids were to the absolute slightest feeling that, just any vibe literally that would come through that would be negative was enough to shut him down, and just make him completely withdraw from life, basically. And but so when we were talking about the whole emotional side of this, and I mean you'll have to watch this once I get this on air. I think you'll really get something out of it.
Yeah.
And but
I get that shut down. I think that's the fight, flight, fight response is what you're talking about. And he went into the freeze response.
His son, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but it's to the point where, it's if they would not have gotten him out of his withdrawal or his dissociation from life, he probably would have been considered severe autistic.
I went through that with this last burnout.
Yeah.
I regressed that far.
Didn't
I? I needed help with.
She never lost like the ability to speak. I know in the youth sometimes they start learning language and then stop.
Right.
But she would just look at me and say, "I need that the thing that it's I need." She lost a lot of words, and with someone with a education background and a master's degree, for her to not be able to come up with the word like hot pad or she's hungry, I want a bowl of that stuff that you eat with a spoon. It's like, okay, is it soup or cereal? Okay, yeah, cereal, thank you. Yes. And be sure to put the stuff on it. Okay, milk? Yes, milk.
Yes.
And to have someone who we used to use words like plethora and conundrum and whatnot in normal conversation. Now it's trying to get her to remember milk. And there's so much going on up there, and I told her a lot about just this idea of she's at her full point, where you see a cup of water that's heaped over. Yeah, it's like somebody's actually throwing drips in, and you can't keep adding drips without it overflowing. And those words weren't necessary. She didn't need to add those drips. She just let me help her with them. But there was that point where she was just, all of her senses were overwhelmed, and speech wasn't really necessary. She didn't need words. She needed food, and she voiced enough that she could get food. But it's encouraging her to try. Can you just try and take a shower? Let's I'll get the water started for you. There was a lot of care that was necessary because she just couldn't.
And that was the last burnout.
Yeah.
It makes me sad that his son burned out at that young of age.
I don't think it's I think it's just the level of stress that you're under. I mean, and I think it varies. I was going to say, I know that I never thought of this as being an autistic trait. I guess I don't know what I used to think it was, early Alzheimer's. But right now, I struggle with going, okay, is this something because I'm getting older? I think what's happening to me is that as you get older, I think your ability to cope goes down. Your energy or your whatever goes down, and it's much easier for me once I'm especially fatigued or tired or headache or something like that. Is that I start losing words. I could not for the life of me remember the name of this program this morning. I had to say, I literally took a minute or two and said, okay, hold on, Guy, let me think, okay. And I had to go through visual images and things. It's like, okay, what did I draw out? What did it, and that kind of thing. And, and what's amazing is how we have all of our lives found ways to justify or to put meaning behind stuff, which, it's like being on fire and saying, it must be a warm day out, or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because you go through that where you're trying to find those words. I think that I worked so hard I got to the point where I became pretty fluent with that. I mean, with my masking, it was just flawless at most of the time, unless I was not feeling well or if something else kept me like something stressful. It was anyways.
Yeah.
I think that it's interesting because when you're trying to think of those words, sometimes the word is so tangible in your brain and you can see it and you can feel it and whatnot. You just can't get it to come out of your mouth. And you're like you can see it, exactly what that word is, but there's just no transference there.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I find interesting is when you cross transfer. And we did this the other day, like we were watching TV and he said, we were watching The Masked Singer, and I said, which one got kicked out or got voted out? And he said the dinosaur. And I said, well, who was it? And he told me who it was. I'm like, no, he's a man. In my head, when he said dinosaur, I saw the rhinoceros.
So there was like a close enough term.
So I will often mismatch terms that are close like that. I know what a dinosaur is and I know what a rhinoceros, but sometimes with the language, I'll get those moments, and I do that a lot in conversation, and sometimes you get misunderstandings because of it, and sometimes it causes other things because you totally were picturing something completely different than what the person was talking about.
This is something I do, and it may be related to this. I'm not sure. I mean, this is the other thing too. Is I especially late diagnosed adults, we're doing so much catch up and trying to understand what it is, because we put all these false definitions and everything and why it happens, and all of a sudden we go, no, wait, that's not true. It's because of something neurological going on. And but I know when I'll look for something and I'll remember it as being blue, and I'll shut out any other color but blue that I'm looking for, and what I'm looking for is red and sitting right in front of me. I mean, literally, it can be literally right there in front of me. Is that ever? I see you smiling.
That is the theme of our household. I have 3 people in my home who can't find anything, and I have 3 people who just always walk up and find it. Like your example with like looking for something small, like peanut butter. In Julie's mind, she might be looking for a jar of Jif, and she'll even move a jar of Peter Pan peanut butter out of the way, looking for Jif, because the lid's not blue or the label's not green. Yes. But she might even touch the item she's looking for, but. I was looking for almond milk, so I moved regular cow's milk and cashew milk and whatever out of the way. But I watch her clear the thing, like she goes to get a towel and she'll see a whatever, it's just weird things that'll be in the way that change her course of things. And I just can't find
9 times out of 10, I get frustrated and walk away without eating.
Yeah. What'd you say again, Julie?
9 times out of 10, I'll get frustrated and walk away and just not eat.
It's easier for her to just skip a meal than it is to be frustrated and not find. Or
skip a shower, skip whatever, just because I'm so, I get so anxious, my brain will go into that fight, flight, mode, and I just shut it down.
Yeah.
It's like, and then another thing I like to do to avoid that, because I've had issues with losing weight and going long times without eating and stuff. So what I do is I pick out maybe 1 or 2 foods that I know are safe, and then I just eat those.
Mm-hmm.
We went for close to 12 months with nothing but vanilla yogurt and granola, and it had to be a certain flavor, a certain brand, and if it wasn't in the fridge, Julie didn't eat. So there were, I was driving around at midnight hoping to find a 24-hour place that sold, coconut yogurt that was the right brand, and even it was not even brand specific, it was the low calorie one. So it had to be like Dannon coconut light Greek yogurt and the exact same granola. And if we didn't have that, it wasn't worth eating. So right now she's stuck on jalapeno poppers, which is just baffles me. But that's what she eats. She's had these phases, and she eats until she can't take it anymore, can't like them anymore, and then she's just done. So now that one bag of granola that was an emergency 3 months ago has now sat untouched for 3 months because it's now off the list.
Yeah. I just did that with spaghetti. Of course, I like to cook, as this belly shows, and I was, I wouldn't make the pasta from scratch, but I would make the sauce from scratch, and I mean, it was good. I have to say, it was good. Mm-hmm. And I think I ate that for 2 months, pretty much. I mean, even for breakfast, not exclusively, but I would say 80% of what I ate was that spaghetti.
Yeah, I'm pretty much at 90%.
Yeah. She'll throw me off guard. Like I went to the store and said, you know what sounds good as a pickle. So I bought a big jar of dill pickles because if I find something she likes, I'll just be back at the store again. So I buy it in bulk. She said, I want one of those big pickles like you used to get at the deli. So I spent $20 on this 2.5 gallon jug of deli pickles, and it's something that she'll snack on once in a while now. But
yeah, if he knows I like it, he'll buy a bunch.
Cool.
I learned that about me too. Like, if I find a shirt that's comfortable, I just buy 5 of them.
2 or 3.
Because it's safe, and I know I can always go to it.
Yeah.
And then when everything else is so stressful, that's one less thing to have to worry about.
Yeah. What's I've known Julie. I think I've known you for 6 months, probably. I mean, I'm trying to think of I forget. I think through Cora. Is that how you knew? How did we know?
It's been almost a year, I think, because I think that you and I met when I was just starting my burnout, and I had just gotten past the phase where I was just starting to talk again and stuff after burnout.
Okay. But I've noticed a lot of parallels between you and me. When you write on Facebook, I'm just like, yep. And but one of the differences I see in myself is that I don't know what I'm like underneath. I still got a really hard shell that I have. That is, it maybe I'm coming to a major burnout someday. Major burnout. I don't know. I'm hoping not. But but I parallel what you do and what you feel so much. I don't know sometimes how I did what I did all my life.
When you say that is exciting for me to be able to tell you this, because this took me the last year to come to. I spent the last 3 or 4 months hating myself, thinking what a waste of a human being I am. I'm 45 years old, and I honestly can't see myself working, and I can't see myself doing those things. But learning that I'm autistic and going back and looking at all the things that I did, and I look at the way I did them on pure adrenaline.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I don't believe any neurotypical has ever performed at that level. I earned this break, damn it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, it was just a pure adrenaline stream. I mean, you don't sleep because, first of all, I don't sleep at normal time other people do. It's not the right time for me. And secondly, when you're in that adrenaline mode and you're having to perform, all you do is swirl this in your head. You didn't sleep. You were up working in your head all night long.
Yeah.
We at one time, Thomas, Julie and I were both full-time teachers, which is, very much a full-time job. We also worked on a house, and, we would be at school by 7:30, leave there 3:30, 4 o'clock, but then we would go get on paint clothes, and we would work until 3 or 4 in the morning, most of the days of the week. And it'd be like, Jewel, it's 3 o'clock. We got to get up in 4 hours and be at work. She's like, right, but if we do one more coat of paint today, then we don't have to do it tomorrow.
Right.
So we would get out the paint and do another coat of paint, and she just, to her, it was, if she went home, she was just going to worry about it. So why not stay there and do it? But to me, being what a lot of people might have considered neurotypical, to me it was hard because I wanted to be there to support her and not leave her alone, because I knew how tortured she was when she left.
But then I also had the torture of dealing with, I know that if I don't work on that adrenaline spur, I will never get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we did, that was months of, that just day after day after day. And on weekends, it would be, 16 or 18 hours of manual labor, and then still lesson plans and grading papers. But, we gutted a house and we put 20 grand into remodeling it. It was ridiculous. And, but it had to be done. We every surface had been painted, scrubbed, retiled floors.
A bunch of cats peed in it. You could smell it from the road. It was so bad. The people had destroyed it. They had peed in the vents and everything.
Yeah, we had renters in a home, and they had 4 or 5 cats that they left in the basement with one litter box. And I had to replace stud walls. I pulled out 2x4 walls because it had soaked from the floor up into the wood. So, you come home from a day of doing mental work to do all that physical labor. It was really a labor of love, because I knew Julie couldn't not have it done, but, so she couldn't rest emotionally until the work was done.
Because I couldn't handle having my job if everything in my house and my home wasn't in place, because I could not handle my home and my job both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I had to have everything done, because basically when I got home, I just fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're operating at that level of intensity, everything's magnified. I mean, I think that's what's, people that aren't autistic don't understand. Again, it's just, we really are. We're in two different kind of realities in a lot of ways.
And I think that we would do very well with fewer hours working, because we're so intense during the hours that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I had, and I know, Thomas, Julie shared with you some of what I do. I'm working for a company that provides behavior treatment for families with children with autism.
Okay. And
I'm working toward my BCBA certificate. And getting in this behavior analyst, I meet a lot of families, and this one mom I talked to today, she said with this coronavirus thing, therapy's moved back to the home. And she said that her son is under such different stress because, well, why don't I get to ride in the car every day? And, I'm used to getting dressed when I wake up because I need to leave. And he'll get up and put his shoes on. And she said he can't handle the stress. And the story I told her, I said, you think about being at a family reunion with one of those styrofoam plates, and it holds just the exact amount of weight you need all the time. But if you add any one more thing, you set a cookie on it, it breaks. You put, but I told you, he's operating at this level where his plate is at the exact weight it can hold.
Yeah.
And when you change anything, a different bedtime, your TV show's not on because, the governor's on, or, any interruption in internet. She said
food.
He couldn't watch his Netflix. He worked for a reward and wanted to watch a Netflix show, and the internet was down. And she said he started throwing stuff and swearing. And I said, you're right, because he's already at his maximum.
Yeah.
That's all he can handle. And you added something, and it's not by choice. It just happens.
And I don't think that's an autistic thing. I think
it's a human thing.
It's a human reactive thing.
I think
because I look at how people are acting now, neurotypicals who are at their boiling point because they want to get out there and be social, and they're doing some of the behaviors that they'll say, oh, she must be autistic or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
But the reason I liken it to autism is the type of thing.
Right.
If I walk upstairs right now and I turn on Netflix and they've removed my show, I really don't care. I'll find a different show. But where someone with autism can't wear their blue socks, or, these kids who, I have to start my day by eating Captain Crunch and it's gone.
That's me.
His entire day is shot, where in the neurotypical mind, yes, there is a breaking point, but we can also choose what things break it. My kids getting in an argument will push me over the edge quickly. But if the mail doesn't come or a check bounces or something, yeah, it's frustrating, but I just take it in and absorb it differently, where it could be something really simple, like we're out of jalapeno poppers. It could be, a miserable night.
Really
Julie won't
well
sleep.
with that.
Or, yeah, I've been trying to go to the grocery store once a week, and we ran out of something Julie's dependent on right now. And I was able to make her grilled cheese or something, but we found something else, and she's like, you know what, I can make it work. I get it. Times are different. And,
Yeah.
but I think you're very much right. I'm not disagreeing with you that everybody has that point, but I think it's with that autistic mindset of there are things that exactly have to happen or everything just goes to crap. I think the neurotypical mind or a non-autistic mind might be a better way to put it.
I think
You
I'm
can
less
sort things
flexible in my mind. I'm less. I think it's a lack of flexibility. When things change, I have a harder time. I think that's what it is. It's a lack of flexibility.
Well, and don't you think too that the autistic mind? I mean, it doesn't matter. There's not. How am I gonna put this? Martin there on Facebook had talked about that we are associative thinkers. We think from the specific to the general. We tend to we think laterally, so that if you talk about your jalapeno poppers, it's not just the food. I mean, it's the process that you went through to decide on eating that as opposed to nacho cheese with dip is. I mean, it was a process. It was like this or this, this or this. Well, this has the advantage of that. This has the advantage of that, and so that everything is like it's like under a microscope. Everything is like it's nothing is this general. It's food. I can do that. I mean, but I still
Exhausting.
You
gotta pick your battles. And food for me, I don't care. I just eat the same thing. That's the easiest thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
That way, I can save that energy to worry about something else.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I will get overwhelmed if I try to go in and try to find something to eat. I will end up in tears and just not eat. It's just not worth it for me anymore. And that's been since my burnout. Before my burnout, I was good at being able to stick to 2 or 3 different staples and doing it. But I'm almost like after my burnout, I've lost the even more flexibility. I'm hoping it's going to come back. It's gotten better over the last year, but it's still hard.
Gotcha.
Did you talk to Thomas about your spoon thing that you read about?
Oh, the spoon theory is what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
I think that the number of spoons I'm able to handle is a lot less now that I'm older than when I was younger. But the thing that makes me sad about it is I think that I used all of my spoons to fit in, and I didn't use my spoons for my children, which is where they should have been used.
Well, don't you can't change the past.
No, but I'm home now.
Yep, you bet.
And I'm closer to them now than I ever have been.
And you're on the right track. I mean, that's how I've looked at it. I said, this is a new beginning. This is a starting over point. And I started looking I still look in the past, but it's more or less to learn about the present and myself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's. I mean, I remember saying to myself, are you going to waste this gift by being bitter and buying, oh, I wish, in the past, because I really can't change that. But I can focus that energy on what I can do now and to learn about myself and putting energy into programs like this. And I mean, I could have easily have, I'm a real crybaby. I really am a little petty, little child sometimes, but I
do think that there is healing that needed to be done for me. And I did go back in the past and I worked through everything, because I basically my whole life, I just kind of just survived. I was complete survival mode. I didn't really make any real choices I just did what I was told I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And over this past year, I went right back to the beginning. And of course, when I go back, I relive and everything. But in doing that, I was able to forgive people who are now important people, like my father. My father's an example of that. My father and I had my needs weren't met.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't treated well by my grandmother, and I had been trying to have my dad help me my whole life, and he wasn't there. But now learning I'm autistic and seeing how he saw things and how things look different for him and whatnot, and we've been able to find some middle ground, and it's really a good place to be. I have also been able to forgive myself for many things. I've been able to look at the world in just a different way. For me, I feel healthier in my brain. It's funny, I'm doing absolutely nothing all day long except sitting, thinking, and playing my games. But in my mind, I feel healthier than I've ever felt my entire life, because I feel like I kind of have an identity, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. That was the that's, I mean, and I was in a really dark place prior to finding my my answer here, and it was so dark because I had gotten to the point. I mean, it was I don't know how to say, it was just so fake. It was, and for so long I had tried to. There was nothing left to make it real. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it does very much so, Thomas.
It does.
It does.
It's like a surrealness of everything.
Yeah.
It's stuff with Julie just started to unravel. Like, well, what do you mean that's not a fact? Because if that's not an absolute, it like derailed everything she'd ever believed.
Yeah.
And with Julie, I don't mean to talk myself up at all, but when we met, I started doing things, and her dad would say, well, you can't do it this way, or it won't work this way. And she's like, well, my dad said you have to do it that way. So I would like purposely do things differently just to show her that it would work. And I think it slowly started to unravel. But this last, this last big breakdown, this last big meltdown, so many things all derailed at once. There was just no way to slow the train down.
Mm-hmm.
And we just sat there together watching more and more train cars pile up. And
can I just be honest about it? This is for adults to watch, right?
Yeah.
This might help women out there. I was sexually attacked by my husband's best friend. He pretended to be somebody he wasn't for 4 years, and it ended up in a big, huge mess. But needless to say, that was my last straw, and that's what forced me into this last burnout that I couldn't get out from, because basically my entire fakeness, or whatever it is you're calling, basically you build this survival thing up, and if one piece breaks, the whole thing crashes down. I mean, it's kind of like it's a survival space. And once you start getting cracks and chinks in it, it just falls apart. And that's what happened to me at that time. And I guess I wanted to mention that because one of the things that I did learn from that experience, because I was a sexual assault survivor from my childhood. And I thought, gosh, these are the people that people don't believe because it happens more than once, and and started looking into it and found that people that are sexually abused will often be sexually abused again. And that is because what happens is can you explain it in better words?
I'm not exactly sure which way you're going, but I know you said something about how people read you and how you read them.
Basically what happens is they've done research on like predators and stuff, and they can pick out their victims just by the way they stand, the way they look, and whatnot. And some of the autistic traits come across as a weakness to predators. And that's why there is such a high number of autistic girls who do go through this. And so for me, I wanted to say that in case somebody else is out there and they're feeling like, what's wrong with me that this happened to me? I really think that autistic girls, all girls, not just autistic girls, but especially autistic girls, because we have a harder time with social boundaries and things like that, and we're trying so hard to fit in. I think that needs to be taught, how to protect yourself, because that is something that we really have a problem with. If you look at the statistics on it, I was not alone.
And I think, just to say this too, I think and that vulnerability also hits males too that are autistic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It happens to anybody. I don't know, did I say just females? I'm sorry if I said that.
No, but I think some of that comes from the masking, where you're trying to fit in, you're trying to belong, so you're laughing at jokes that may be slightly off color and make you uncomfortable because you don't know what else to do.
Right.
So you start getting read wrong because you don't know what to do, so you react in the way you think you're supposed to, and you know, someone might push you, and this person did purposely push Julie to frustration multiple times and say things like, oh, let's hug it out, or, you know, I wouldn't pick on you if we weren't friends. And it's like he tested the water repeatedly
for 4 years.
And looking back on it, I can't feel like anything but a fool, because I didn't see it, and I consider myself to be a pretty good test of people, and or judge of people, I guess.
But we ended up finding out that I was not the only person he'd done this to, so he was a repeated predator. So.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry.
He knew what he was doing. But on Quora, somebody, you know, people ask dumb questions on there too, and someone asked, how does a psychopath view someone with autism? And the person had answered in one word: prey. P-R-E-Y.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Or target.
Target, yeah. But no, they said prey.
Yeah.
So.
Boy, that's.
I just, you know, there's just a lot that, and I think women of my generation that are autistic may not even know yet that they are autistic, just thinking maybe it'll all make sense someday, or they'll get the right pill that'll make them feel normal or whatnot. Because, you know, I'm sure all of us felt something like that somewhere down the line.
And I think it hit our generation, you know, the early 50s, late 40s, whatever, because of the change in the workforce. You know, when women were able to stay at home and they spent most of their time at home and taking care of their kids and their husband, there wasn't that extra expectation that being forced into, you now need to work a full-time job and be a parent and be a spouse. You know, when people in our age bracket, you know, even, you know, my parents' age, the early 60s, it's now that you added all that extra stress, these girls that were undiagnosed with autism, you know, it's opens this whole new world. You know, my grandma could have been highly autistic, but she got up in the morning and cooked Grandpa breakfast. She always did laundry. She always cleaned the house. There was always dinner on the table when he got home, and then she got up and did it again the next day. And it was an absolute routine.
Yeah.
But it was perfect for her.
Right.
But then you get into, well, okay, you can do all that stuff, but now you also have to add this. We're back to that, you know, overflowing water or the breaking plate kind of thing, where, you know, that's why we're getting a lot of these late diagnoses. Is
interesting.
People are now hitting their late 40s and they're breaking because they've used up their life of patience.
And the expectation on women too, because women aren't expected, they're still expected to do, like in most women I talk with and have been with, it's like they're expected to be super women. They're supposed to work, bring in half the income, and keep the house up, and do the laundry, and raise the kids. And I'm like, wait a second, that's 2 jobs.
And you got to go to the gym twice a week too. Don't forget that one.
I just can't keep up with it, you know. It's just
sure, yeah. Well, we're about 50 minutes in, and one of the things I'd just like to touch on, and maybe this is something we can come back and talk about more, and that is the autistic family, the three and three, because I think that'd be fascinating for people to hear too. This has been great information. You know, this is what we thought would happen. We would go on a tangent that would be fascinating, and there's a lot of great information here.
Well, and a lot of it's just new, because I know when I started in burnout, when I would go to research different things, there just wasn't a lot of information out. But since I've been diagnosed, just in this past year, the amount of information I'm able to find has just grown exponentially. So it's pretty cool. And I think a lot of it has to do with people like you, Thomas, who are just being a voice. I mean, you just getting the word out there. I mean, I've done little things too. I've called and said, this is me, and this is what I'm dealing with at who did I call? all different
every
autistic
phone number you
places,
could
and they said, we hear this all the time. You're not alone. You're not alone. People
Right.
are calling us all the time. And I'm thinking, so why is there such little stuff out there for adults? But within the last year, it's just really changing, and I just hope it keeps on that trend. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
hopefully. But yeah, I know that you and I have had a lot of parallels with that over the last year, with our getting through the different burnouts and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I hope you don't hit the big one.
I say I don't think I will, but things keep unfolding, and I don't know what's to come. I've been really fortunate the last, be a year in May is when I quit my full-time job that I hated, and took actually ended up being like 3 months off. Then I got a part-time job, and that I've been on since. I'm hoping it will kick into full, because I'm living like with the skin of my, but I'm okay. I have nothing to complain about. Life is good, and I've been good with money, and my house is paid off, and all, so my overhead is like less than most people's interest on their credit card.
Right.
So I've been blessed in a lot of ways to have the opportunity to heal and to really go through, I think, what you've been doing too, Julie, and there's people I know that have been diagnosed that need to go through this and can't get out of their family routine or whatever routine, and I wish I could set up some remote place people could come in and just stay.
Yeah,
exactly. And I do want people to know that I did feel a lot of anger. I felt loss. I felt sadness. I felt so many different things, and I think I needed to feel those. I think it was kind of like a grief of grieving this person who I had created all these years, and just kind of saying, you know what, enough's enough. It's time to find your authentic self. And it's kind of like stripping all that away and saying goodbye to it. And it's hard because it's 40 some years of my life.
Yeah.
And I do think it's, I think everyone's going to feel it differently, but it's okay no matter what you're feeling. If you feel angry, that's fine, as long as it's productive and it gets you somewhere eventually. So,
well, with the one of the things I've discovered that I think, I don't know how to rate this. I don't know enough about it but alexithymia, not being able to really understand what I'm feeling, when I'm feeling it, why I'm feeling it, and that sort of wild card concerns me, because I know that behind. I mean, like right now, I'm sitting probably here at about 20% tense. And this is when I'm at night sometimes in bed, I'll notice I'm doing this in bed when I think I'm relaxed.
And then you got to tell yourself, literally, how do you do that? I get it.
And so I don't know. You're saying hopefully I will never have a big burnout. I mean, I hope not either. I mean, I'm not, what you went through was horrible, it sounds like. I mean, but at the same time, you've come through, and it may be all blue skies from here, or at least, not all storms.
I'm not back to where I was, but I'm kind of thinking that's probably not where I need to go. Where I'm at right now is I really don't know what's next.
Yeah.
I really don't know. Unfortunately, I have a husband who gets it and isn't degrading me for it. He knows what I've been through. He knows what's happening, and support is the number one key for that. So,
but you're finally, and this is what I say to myself, we're finally on the right track.
Yeah.
We're finally on the right track. If nothing else, I'm just going to ride this rail and let it take me where it's going to take me. And
I have a theory for alexithymia.
Okay.
My theory is that because as children, we didn't always have our needs validated.
Right.
Like I remember I would have stomach ache all the time. And now research shows kids with autism often have the stomach issues. But I would get things like, oh, my brother called me faker baker, and oh, Julie's just making a big deal out of things. Like whenever I would feel something physically, or even if I felt something emotionally, I was constantly told how inappropriate my feelings were. And I think I just got to a point where I didn't trust my own feelings anymore. So I have a hard time determining what it is I'm actually feeling. The only emotions I'm very comfortable with saying, I know this is anger, I know this is overwhelmed. The other feelings, it's confusing.
You know, it's when you were saying this. Remember we the whole peanut butter jar analogy of I'm looking for Skippy, but it's a Jif jar. In a way, that's sort of how alexithymia feels to me. Is that that's a weird analogy. I don't know how I started coming up with that, but it was it's
just there's something in the way. It's that Skippy peanut butter jar is keeping you from finding Jif, or but that anxiety, that tenseness is keeping you from your true feeling.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes.
I see where you're going.
I like this guy.
That's how we work.
This is how we work.
Yeah.
And that anxiety is what propels you to try to fit in and try to belong. And when you remove that anxiety, which I've been homebound for a year. I mean, I know that's sad to some people, but I've needed this for me. I've needed to heal. I've needed to rest. I've needed to do this. And when you take all those other factors away, you don't have the anxiety.
Wow.
And then when you don't have the anxiety, you don't have the meltdowns, and you don't have the behaviors and the whatnots, and it's just.
This is sort of what Guy was talking about his son, what they did at the center, was they gave him, they recreated a safe space around him. They made it emotionally safe, physically safe, and all these things. And I was asking him, and we were sort of talking about this, and we kind of had a big question mark. It's like, what can adults do? How can we use what you're learning for the kids that adults can take it? And I think you're on what we're talking about here would be fascinating to continue on. Would be
we started with my burnout, I started with a small space, which was...
Well, we even adapted our bedroom. We put in the room darkening blinds. We put in a rocking chair in a corner. Got a little Google Home thing so she can listen to the sounds of the ocean or rain.
And I spent about 3 months in that chair.
But she would just get up and rock, and that was...
For 3 months,
all
I did.
There's still a sign on our bedroom door that said, we're working on Mom being able to rest. Please don't even dare knock on the door unless someone's bleeding or whatever until at least noon, because Julie needed to know there's an absolute I have peace until this time. And right now it's interesting with the kids all being home. It's different because our structure is different. When the house is empty, Julie knows I can cry, I can be angry, I can do what I want. But then when there's people here, or the kids want to have friends over, even, is a whole other thing. But she has to have that safe place.
And now my safe space is mid-social. It's on the couch, and I have a spot that I sit in, and it allows me to be alone, but yet be able to communicate with my kids and keep up with them and do things with them and stuff. So
we'll play board games in the dining room, which through the kitchen into the living room, Julie can hear us but not see us. So we'll in there, we'll giggle, we'll talk, we'll say stuff, and then we'll hear Julie comment a little, but she's removed enough that she can be content in part of us, but she's not there where she's ever put on the spot to comment. She's not in there. If we laugh loud, she's far enough away that it doesn't hurt her ears. And just it's kind of, we've been doing social distancing longer than it's been a thing.
That's an interesting thing that I thought was interesting. When I first went through the burnout, and it was like hard and I couldn't come up with words, my senses were like 100 times what they normally were.
Stuff smelled worse or stronger.
It was like sensory overload, and I was trying to figure out because your senses just can't automatically get better. I was trying to figure out what it was
they were heightened. Thomas, I was trying to do her this favor. We were fortunate enough to go to the Dominican Republic, and the resort had this lemongrass type smell. So I bought one of those oil diffusers, and I put it in her bedroom, and I was so proud of me. It's like the lights are down and this diffuser's on and the salt lamp's got a soft orange glow. Julie came walking in the room, froze, gagged, and ran. And like she was just at her limit, and that one additional smell, even though it's something she liked, she wasn't ready for that smell. So I had to open the windows and turn on fans, and it's like she was coming to her safe place, and I thought I had done just like hit this home run, and boy, was it bad. You know, but it's she was just at that thing, and I messed with her safe place.
But I was just curious as to what makes the senses get worse when you're in that mode. Well,
I mean, when just my personal experience is that when my stress level goes up, whether it's I've been getting headaches, and there's probably a psychosomatic kind of a thing going on with me, but I'll know that when when you're pushed to your limits, that I'll notice that I forget what it was. I noticed I startle. I have a like sometimes it can be it's a piece of paper is flicking against something, and it sounds like somebody slammed something against the table. Maybe it doesn't sound that loud, but the effect is...
Feels that loud.
It feels that loud, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm just wondering if it isn't, everything is just at its, that you could say the glass analogy, it's just brimming, and it's just that one more drop, and that's what that little...
So it's my perception and okay, that makes sense.
It's an anticipation. It's
that's what
you're expecting silence, so any noise is too much. You're expecting dim light, so just turning on, even opening the refrigerator might give you a headache because that flash of light is just too much for your eyes. And we've really noticed that with Julie. Like
when I'm overwhelmed or stressed out, I can't process anything extra at all. Like even when I'm sick, like I remember when I used to go to work, if I was not feeling all that well, I used to piss people off because I couldn't mask as well when I was sick. And I would leave by the end of the day. And so whenever and you can't miss, we only get so many days a year, but so I'd have to go in when I didn't feel good. And I had a lot of stomach issues and stuff because of my anxiety. And then you end up finding you get yourself in trouble because you just can't monitor things like you normally do when you don't feel good.
Right. And I tend to be sort of short too. I mean, if someone is, says, well, can you do this? Like, I don't have the tolerance. I don't have the patience. I don't have the...
Yeah.
I'm just like...
I told a coworker to bite me once.
Yeah.
I know. It was sad. Not my finest moment.
Well...
She did kind of deserve it, but it wasn't my finest moment. She bullied me for years, but I finally had enough and told her that. But yeah, when I don't feel good, I feel like everything's louder. Everything smells worse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sorry I picked things. I'm picking the tape off his desk and he doesn't like it.
We're at just a little over an hour right now, and we definitely, I think we could, if you are willing, let's go.
We could go on for a very long time.
Yeah, we could go on a long time, especially about the differences between our kids.
Okay, well let's
12 shows.
We'll I'm sure we won't have any problem finding a point of starting again, and let me know when you want to. I mean, I've got 5 weeks of sitting on my butt coming up, so it's just about any time you want to schedule something, I can do something. So
okay.
Do you have enough to do an episode from this one?
Say again.
She just said you've got enough information to do an episode off of this video.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yay. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And Julie, I know that's, I hope this was a very positive thing for you. It wasn't an energy soaker.
It was. No, it wasn't. I was excited and I was nervous. And that's why we tried to get you earlier, because I'd gotten ready and I was ready to go. And it was like 4:15 and I knew we were supposed to meet at 5, and I was getting like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I just got to get this over with. I had to go on that thing. So I forgot what I was going to talk about.
Well, it's funny that the difference between she and I, because I knew it was going to be at 5 and I'm really meticulous about time. So I stopped working and I went to take kind of some downtime to clear my head, and she came out and said, okay, we're going to do it right now. It's like, wait a second. It's like your anxiety now leads to my anxiety because my mindset isn't right. It's like, well, I know, but I need to do it now. And I don't want it to sound like Julie's selfish, but I just know that for future happiness of my day, I'll do it her way because I can recover from that change where I know she can't.
Yeah.
So, for me, I went outside and I was playing with the dogs, and work's been rough. Our company's cutting back because they're not making money, so we don't make as much money. And I just needed to walk away and breathe and be outside. And she came out and got me and said, "Hey, go back to the computer because we're going to meet." And it's that you need to find that person that can be that for you.
I totally forgot the point I was going to make with that. But...
Well, just you were talking about how excited you were about meeting, and you needed it to be sooner because you got ready at the wrong time.
I said I'm really excited because this is my first time. I just started posting to people that I am autistic, and I chose to use autistic because with using Asperger's, I think that there's a lot more to autism than people understand, and I just want them to understand that it's not easy, and the way that the world is right now is not the most comfortable place for me usually. Mm-hmm. But I've pretended to be a certain person for so many years that this is really my first time being myself with people outside my home. Good. So this is a new experience.
That's a very healthy thing.
Well, except for my therapist, because I see her once a week. But otherwise I'm homebound. So this is kind of like exciting for me because I'm like, I get to be my authentic self today. So
cool. Yes, and I think people will very much appreciate what both of you have done, and we will do this again soon. Julie, Dan, thank you very much, and we will.
Thank you, Thomas.
We'll be talking with you soon. I'm going to shut this off. Okay, I'm going to.